Hello, an alleged mastermind here. Today is the 45th day of my commitment. I talk to the camera every day, working on my language, developing my pronunciation, learning how to use perfect grammar. Today, I'd like to start this video from recalling the definitions which I learned in the last few days. Every week I memorize 5 definitions which I use at the speaking club. The first definition is the definition of wealth. And this week we have a conversation on Saturday and we are going to discuss wealth. So, wealth is what is it? Wealth is man, I forgot. Yeah, now I'll try to remember. I didn't recall the definition yesterday, and now it's hard for me to remember. What was the first line? Wealth is, yeah, now I remembered. Wealth is the abundance of valuable financial assets or physical possessions, which can be converted into a form that can be used for transactions. So this is the definition of wealth. The next definition is the definition of a market economy. Market economy is an economical system in which the decisions regarding investment, production, and distribution are guided by the price signals created by the forces of supply and demand. This is it. 2 definitions. Today I'm going to learn one more, and at the end of the week I'm supposed to memorize 5 definitions, use them at the speaking club, and then at the next week start a new sequence and memorize another 5 definitions. Now, today I'd like to talk about the English-speaking community of Kaluga. So here's what I'm doing to create this community. Now it's just an idea in my head, and I think about this community most of my free time, and it a lot. It is like maybe a couple of hours every day. Free time. I mean, when I am not focused on anything else, when I walk in the street or when I just do such things like shower, whatever, I'm thinking about the community. And also I use this exercise, this self-talk, to develop this idea. And I use my writing. Every day I journal, and in my journals I'm trying to clarify what is exactly it's gonna be and how I am supposed to develop it. So here's the big picture. I want to create an England in Kaluga, like a small place, small area where there are gonna be all sorts of activities, and all these activities, like, okay, let's look at that. Let's look at it as if it were a kind of center, maybe something like university, or maybe just, well, yeah, it's hard to talk about it, even though I see a big picture, but when I start describing it, it all sounds weak. And I don't want to make it sound weak because it's a powerful idea. Now, let me tell you about why I think this idea is gonna work and why I think that I can eventually create the community. Now we have lots of people studying English by non-traditional methods. If a couple of decades ago we had only books and the teachers, and if you wanted to study language, you have to go to a special school or you have to learn how to read books, and it was like almost unavailable for anybody. There were just few people who can really focus their attention on reading and start learning language by reading books. I don't say that there are no such people, but there were very few of them. And the popularity of the activity wasn't so high. And now we have the internet. And on the internet, everyone who has a need to learn a foreign language, in this case English, everyone can do that. It's not a big deal. If you invest 30 minutes a day or an hour a day and do something, and what exactly you are doing is not important at all. The point is that you do certain actions. You may watch movies, you may translate some articles, you may learn how to write, you may learn how to understand yourself, you may read books. Again, you may just find all sorts of sites like Lingoleo, Duolingo, whatever they are. And then you may do something. You may practice language, and if you do it for a relatively long period of time, like maybe 4 or 5 years, if you are willing to get to the point where you can understand native speakers, it's not a big deal. Almost everyone can do that. Well, I did it myself. So I never studied English at school. I never studied it at university. I studied German and I can't speak German, thanks our education system. But at the age of 26, 2012, I realized that I may use the internet and study language. And I started investing my time. Like first it was like an hour a day, then after a few weeks I failed and I quit studying. Then I came back after a few months and made a new attempt and were studying for a little bit more time, like for a couple of weeks. And gradually I built my own routine related to this activity, to studying language. And eventually I learned to speak English. Now I can speak English. I have a speaking club where I may practice my speaking skills with people who also, most of them also studied language by themselves. And the community, it's like I know that since I was doing this by myself, I know lots of people who did the same. But all these people, well, I don't know them well. I had some casual conversations with these people during these last 8 years. Some of them are living here, some of them are living in other cities of our country. And there are lots of people who actually studied the language, but they don't have this opportunity to find the place in our city. Or I'm talking about our city, about Kaluga. So they don't have an opportunity to go to a certain place where they may practice their speaking skills, where they can communicate with other people. And there's a myth in our collective consciousness that if you really want to learn a language, you need to go to a foreign country where this language is spoken. And then when you surround yourself by people who speak English, you'll be able to develop this ability naturally, and you'll be able to speak English if you just live in a country for half a year or maybe a year. But lots of people who have an access to the internet in our city, in Kaluga, don't have an opportunity to go in a foreign country because it's expensive, and you don't like, well, if you have enough, willpower, and if it's very important for you, of course you can, earn enough money and go in a foreign country. But it takes a lot of time. It's expensive, and relatively it's not available for everybody here. Maybe it's available for 20% of people, maybe for 30% of people. But not everybody can go in England or in America and practice their English there. What I'm doing here with this community, I am creating a small area in our city. First, it's just a network. So first, it's a club on the internet. There are people who are just willing to participate in this community. When we have enough people, like let's say 200 people, we may really build the place, like a real place in the middle of our town, where all activities are going to be conducted in English. And it's going to be like small England in Kaluga. It's not going to be an England. It's going to be like a place for people who studied, mostly for people who studied English as a foreign language, to get there and communicate, share their knowledge, share their ideas, to do certain activities together, watch videos, watch lectures, study language together, communicate, maybe create some projects, some educational projects. And I think it's all possible to do just through social networking. So we have lots of sites like Wiki, Facebook, YouTube, and on these sites, if we start to propagandize propaganda, if we start to advertise this idea that we have a community, and then our goal is to create the place where we may gather every time we want and communicate with each other and develop our language. If we are able to develop this idea and put it in like 200 minds living in Kaluga, that's what we need to do, and it's gonna work then. If not, well, I have an intention, and it's a strong intention, and I'm working on this intention. And the intention is just to focus on this community and think about it most of the time. Pay attention to all thoughts related to the community. Basically, it's just an idea now. And to develop this idea, what I'm doing, I'm just asking myself the question, how can I build a community? And that's all. And I'm asking myself this question like 100 times a day. And I'm thinking about all different possibilities that can be can be that's a hard morning today. Yeah, I can remember the definition, I can't remember the word which helps me to describe. Okay, looking at all different models, intellectual models, whatever, and trying to see what works, what doesn't work. And that's how I'm going to build the community, just asking this question over and over and trying to find some answers which are going to be helpful to make a community. Anyway, so now my 15 minutes are coming to an end, and I need to finish this video. I'm going to talk more about this community later. So if you are interested in this idea, if you study language, if you are living in Kaluga, and if you study language And if you have a need to communicate with other people, if you want to be a part of that community, do something to help me. Don't take it as my community. Think about it as your own community and take actions to develop this community. Do something. That's all. See you next time. Bye bye.